the first difficulty setting up we've had all day. It's pretty good, I think. Yeah. Only one so far. And we're ready to go. Take it away.
All right. Hello. So I'm Evan from Wrangle. We're a full stack JavaScript shop. And about a third of our work has been in mobile. So lots of work with Ionic and Cordwood and PhoneGap. And we've also been working in a continuous delivery environment pretty much since the foundation, and kind of along the way, there's been lots of lessons learned, and it's been quite a journey. So this talk is a bit about like how to improve continuous delivery for a mobile. So first, I'm going to spend a minute or two talking about what is continuous delivery, because everyone seems to have their own ideas of what this actually means. So with continuous delivery is a few of the parts is the continuous integration, also continuous delivery, and then finally the continuous deployment and getting the deployable code out to the devices. So on the continuous integration side, this is where we want to be building multiple times per day on every, say, merge and commit on every PR. And as part of that, we also want to be ensuring that we have our unit tests being run, our linting and beautification, and with this, all of this is being linked together with tools like, say, Gulp, Grunt, Webpack, npm scripts, or whatever you have in your build process. And then finally, you have your CI server. There's lots out there: Travis, Jenkins, CodeShip. One of the ones that we like at Wrangle is CircleCI. And the reason why we want to do this is we want to try and keep our master always in a good state, clean, and deployable. Then on the side of continuous delivery is we want to be able to be producing something of value at a frequent interval. And with this, we want to ensure that our master is always in a clean and deployable state. Finally, there is the continuous deployment aspect, and that's now that we have like our master is clean, it's working, hopefully bug-free because our unit tests have passed. We now want to actually deploy that code onto the devices and for both testers and users. And traditionally, continuous deployment has worked, is fairly easy on the front end. It's much harder on the back end. However, there's also challenges with mobile apps. So I guess one of the questions that we want to ask is why do we want to have continuous deployment on our mobile apps? Well, at Wrangle, we found that with continuous deployment that there is a good kind of alignment between deployment and Agile, and kind of at Wrangle, on a few of our teams that might have been having issues with working in an Agile environment. Once we started to adopt continuous deployment, some of these issues got resolved because we're able to actually be testing the software and getting feedback. So like Agile, continuous deployment helps because it allows us to focus on building what is actually needed. And this is enabled because we're discussing working software. We have like the up-to-date versions on devices. We're able to focus on what's next and also prioritize what the next features are. And one of the key parts of this is being able to avoid having too much work in a progress, ultimately trying to save money. And also, we want to realize our investment on either learning or value sooner. And if you kind of take, say, one of these Scrum maxims, being able to deliver 80% of the value for 20% of the effort. So what we want to do is be able to deliver for either value and/or learning. So on one hand of things, we have the lean towards tangible value or traditional Scrum, or if you're kind of going for the lean startup, is a leaning towards learning. And we also want the ability to kind of navigate which way that we're going, depending on our business needs. So one of the things that you have to ask is, how do we achieve continuous delivery in a general? And this is a thing that most of us have probably been through if we're in an agile environment. We want to have good user stories and feature slicing, things being kind of like small units of work. We want to try and limit the number of stories that we have as a work in a progress. And we also want to try and reduce the cycle time. However, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that buggy software is work in a progress. And then basically deferred bug fixing costs more. And really, deferred bug fixing costs more. The longer that you wait to address bugs, the higher the cost. And this is where at Wrangle we've had some of our most profound learnings with Agile and continuous delivery is because of this friction here. Especially say with a Cordova app, if you have, say, CSS, a bunch of CSS at the start, and people might not be paying enough love or attention to the style sheets. As you start to merge in PRs, you'll have issues due to regression or testing, and this eats up a lot of time. So what we want to do to try and make this work is basically leaving testing up to testers is often a problematic thing. If you're working in a short sprint, let's say a one-week sprint, if you have a story done on Monday and the tester can't get to it until Thursday, you're pretty much having a mini waterfall within a iteration. So what we want to do is try to aim for deployable. We want to try and aim for truly continuous delivery, where the code is deployable after each merge. So with this approach, how do we have to approach testing? And the short answer is testing is everyone's job, not just the tester's job. However, this starts to raise a interesting question when you think of what hot push is and what it means, not just for, say, pushing things out to end users, but how hot push can be used in the development cycle. And it really starts to raise the urgency of deploying your software sooner and faster to get that feedback. So what we're doing at Wrangle is we have kind of our Wrangle flow, which is kind of like Git flow. However, you'll see that there's quite a bit going on in the PRs. For example, our PRs, they'll go through for CI. If CI fails, the dev has to go back, fix their linting, testing, and whatnot. Finally, once the passes CI, we'll have an environment created just for that PR. That's where either the devs or testers can go and test just on that PR. And then there's a bit of back and forth. And there's kind of a lot going on in these pull requests. And then if you have a large team and multiple PRs going on, kind of a few hours delay on each PR can really start to slow things down. So what you have to try and do is make sure that you're getting through these PRs quickly and fast and being able to close them. Because if you start to have these delays, there is a massive repercussion downstream on being able to deliver quality software fast. So how do you measure if your continuous delivery is working or not? This is kind of the same as Agile, where you want to look at the cycle time and the work in progress. And if these are high, then you want to debug the process. And this is where at Wrangle we kind of felt this a pain point, because for our mobile applications, even if they were, say, simpler than our web apps and websites, as they often had a higher work in progress and cycle time. For example, if you have 3 devs working on several stories, you have multiple PRs open. If you're waiting until the very end for testing, there's that cost of the context switch where the tester finds an issue. It might have to go back to the dev. The dev has moved on to another story. So we want to try and minimize this. So this brings us to the issues that arise with this. And basically, it's about handoffs driving rework. So you have a product owner or a user that you're getting the features and requirements for a story. It goes through a design phase. Your designer does the UI, UX mockups. That gets handed off to the developer. The dev does their work, gets handed off to testing. Hopefully, if it passes testing, it goes for feedback. And at any point in this process, you could find an issue, a regression, a change in requirements, and this cycle starts to kind of happen over and over. And these handoffs drive lots of rework and eats up time. So the key here is to kind of get testing done quickly, and to do this, we have to treat testing as everyone's job, not just the tester's job. So kind of within the life of a pull request, testing is often one of the largest lags, especially if you're waiting until the story is done before handing it off to a tester. And design also can be a cause of a lot of rework as PRs get merged in. You might have regressions due to styling issues and conflicts. And this kind of really also starts to bring up the point of having access to your code on a real device is a really important thing. Emulators and simulators can only go so far. So for example, about a year or so ago, we were working on an application. It was on a bunch of devices. We thought that it was working fine. Then we deployed it to a Note 2, and the whole thing just kind of blew up and kind of looked like this Picasso painting, things scattered across the UI. We were wondering what was going on. And it ended up being an issue with memory and just basically using up too much memory and blowing up the DOM. And this just kind of emphasizes the importance of being able to actually get code on a device as soon as possible. Because the cost of fixing these bugs, especially if it's, say, days after the initial feature was done, is massive. And this will start to cause the number of, say, open PRs to kind of keep stacking. And if you're trying to have a continuous delivery approach, one of the, say, biggest signs of a dysfunction in your process is if you have too many PRs open, and this will also then be reflected in having a high amount of work in progress and a high cycle time. So there's a few ways to approach solving this. Firstly, there are solutions within your team and how you build out your teams. So at Wrangle, we have the designers actually work with the team. This kind of helps prevent the say, mini waterfall of going through the, say, design and mockups and having this handoff and the designer walks away. No, we have our designer working with the team to have that constant feedback. Also, being able to pair up designers and also pairing up developers, especially in the cases where friction is happening. Also, you want to kind of always keep an eye on your work in progress and cycle time. However, as you're adopting continuous deployment, there will be a bit of a ramp up, and you want to try and automate as much as possible. And another key factor is having your entire team kind of believe and understand the actual value of this process. And this is where having a good Scrum Master is important, because they can help kind of make the team understand what's going on and then buy into the value of what they're doing and then work together to solve the issues. And then finally, onto the fun part is solutions and the continuous delivery pipeline. So for example, PRs should be closed under a certain amount of hours. And what is that, like say, how many hours is that? It's going to depend on your project and team and when you start to feel the friction or pain. But a good idea is basically seeing, is your work in progress going up? If so, it probably means that the PRs are not being closed quickly. And this kind of results in more development against older code bases, which leads to more regressions. So minutes count. But there's a few issues here, because building takes time, deploys take time, the testers aren't always immediately available to test, which leads to a big impact on flow, where you have bigger PRs, longer PRs, more regressions, more testing, and this just snowballs and takes up more and more time. So the solution that we have is now using Microsoft CodePush for the hot push of the updates, CircleCI using the Heroku style, like per pull request instances of applications, and being able to deploy different PRs as required. And this will start to enable us to have hot push across the entire dev lifecycle, not just hot push at the end of the build. And the benefit here is that as a developer, if you can hot push onto your devices, you're the one that made that change. You'll be able to quickly, within a few minutes, load it up onto a few devices, test it out, and see are there any, say, obvious breaking changes? Is it working as intended? And this helps mitigate that delay that you have when you save it until the very end, a few days later. But right now, there are lots of solutions for hot push. There's like Onyx Push, Content Sync, Microsoft CodePush, and at Wrangle, we even built our own called Cordwood. And it's all too much. There's a lot of solutions out there. But one of the things that we do want to have is hot push across the dev lifecycle. So a quick talk about Cordwood, even though it's kind of currently dead, but more on that later. With Cordwood, what we had is hooks into CircleCI. We were able to create instance deployments of the application for each PR. We had a client-side UI to pick which PR that we wanted to load, and then the ability to deploy once and then presto across all of these devices have the changes there for a testing. But Cordwood is currently dead. But an example of how it used to work is you'd have a Cordova application, and then there'd be a place in the UI where you could see what the available versions were. You could sync it up and then view those changes. And basically what we're doing is going through all of the PRs that were there and being able to pull those into our applications. But it's dead. And the reason for that is there are so many solutions right now that it didn't really make sense to keep building ours. So we took a look at what was out there and wanted to have a goal of being able to have a solution that worked across all of our JavaScript projects. And this is where we have started to adopt Microsoft CodePush. And with CodePush, you can look at the site there, and then with CodePush, it handles the push process very well. However, there's no built-in solution yet for the per PR type of deployments that we wanted. However, with CircleCI, a few node scripts, and debugging the API, we're fairly close to having this part solved. So there's a demo app available on our Wrangle/CodePush a demo. But approximately how it works is you have your Cordova application being able to sync for an update, see if it's available, and then eventually it will sync and download, and you'll have the most current version. And to kind of walk through that again, we have the ability to kind of check for an update, sync it down, download it, and have your application with the most current changes. And the next part that we're working on is the ability to have the per PR deployment to have this hot push across the development lifecycle. And that's it. So again, Microsoft CodePush, and then the repo for our demo application. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan.